So I'm Dr. Vance Ginn with the Texas Public Policy Foundation. So today I want to talk a little bit about how teachers win with school choice. So imagine this. Imagine that you are all teachers and I'm the one public school in this area. Who is going to have market power? Will it be you, the teachers? Or is it me, the one public school in the area? It's gonna be me, right? So it's very hard for teachers to be able to negotiate what their salary is going to be if I'm the only consumer of teaching services in that particular market. And so what we have is a market in which it's not well functioning. And as Adam Smith talked about the invisible hand, where supply and demand come together, we can't really see it, but it's there behind the scenes that allows for this sufficient allocation of resources for a price to be determined in this market. And what we're not able to have with teachers in public schools is a well-functioning market. Because of the wages that they're unable to negotiate. And so I'd like to explain more on that here today during my presentation. So first of all, I certainly agree that good teachers should be paid more. I think we could all get behind that. And so many Texans agree. 67%, according to a 2014 Texas Tribune UT Austin poll, said that Texans say increasing teacher pay would improve educational outcomes. Teachers are paid more, they do a better job maybe in the classroom, that allows for better educational outcomes to come about. Maybe the best way, which I would agree with Mr. Mafaro here, is that maybe it's not to use tests to determine whether that's the best metric to use. Maybe there are other metrics that are out there, but however you want to measure that, better teachers should be able to be paid more. So the common solution that's heard is that we need to spend more money. Spending more money will solve the problem. And that would help to increase teacher pay and increase educational outcomes and students would be able to find better jobs moving forward and things of that nature. Well, if we go back to 1972 and adjust educational spending here in public education spending here in Texas with inflation, you'll notice that spending adjusted for inflation has more than doubled since 1972. It's up about 140% since then. However, if you use one metric of educational outcomes, SAT scores adjusted for participation and demographics, you'll notice that it's flatlined or slightly negative. And this is what we've seen across the board in many metrics that we have when we're looking at educational outcomes. So we're spending a lot more and we're not getting the benefits or the outcomes that we would like to see, which are improvement in educational outcomes for the bright young minds of tomorrow. So an issue here is that and it's been brought up before, is that most public education spending is not going to the classroom, right? And this is a huge issue. So here in Texas, total spending per student was $12,106 in 2012-13 school year. All right, so stay with me. Average elementary school class is 18 students. Average high school class size is 27 students. So you do the math, right? Multiply those together. That means Texas spends $215,000 to $325,000 per class. However, the average salary for a Texas teacher, a little over $48,000 a year. So not every dollar is going in. Okay, some of that's going to brick and mortar, but a lot of that is going into bureaucracy and not going into the classroom that's going to be able to allow for teachers to teach better and have the resources to do so, and therefore improve student outcomes in the process. And that's a huge issue. The other thing is that, as I was mentioning, public schools tend to control teacher salaries. As was mentioned before, there is this minimum 10-month salary schedule that's put in place by the state on teachers. And so it increases as the years of experience increase. It's also based on, it's not actually based on the minimum salary, it's not based on their educational background. So if you include their educational background, which 97% of teachers have a bachelor's degree or more, you'll see if they have a higher average pay. So instead of having a 10-month minimum salary of $27,540 when they come in, a teacher with a bachelor's degree would make on average $41,200. But then even more than that, teachers have many more years of experience. So 91% of teachers have more than 3 years of experience. So that also pushes up this overall average, which gets us closer to that $48,821 per year that the average teacher makes, or average salary that a teacher makes. So that's how, and so you have this sort of controls that are in place by these public schools whenever they have a large share of the market. And how much of the share of the market do they have? Well, public schools control 93% of the amount of teachers that are being hired across the state. All right? There are about 350,000 teachers in the great state of Texas. 325,000 of them are employed by public schools, leaving about a little over 23,000 that are employed by private schools. So 93% of the market share is being consumed, the teaching service is consumed by public schools. So as I mentioned earlier, imagine that you're all teachers and I'm the public school, and that's what we see in many of the places across the state. And so what this does is it doesn't allow for an efficient allocation of resources where a market can be able to allocate these resources effectively, right? So I don't want to bore you too much, right? But as an economist, I like to look at charts and graphs and things of that nature, okay? Many of us have heard of monopoly, right? And you've all heard of monopoly, I'm sure. Monopoly is where you have one firm that's producing that particular good, and there's no other firm that's in the market producing that particular good, right? And so what we find is the efficient output level is where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, right? You might remember that in some of your Econ 101 courses, go way back, okay? And so where they intersect, that's where you find your quantity. You go up to your demand curve, your AR, average revenue, and that's where you find your price. So a price of monopoly, PM, is greater than the price in competition. And that's one of the reasons why we have what some would say market failure, is because the price is higher than it otherwise would be if we had many buyers and sellers in the or sellers in this case, sellers in the overall market. And so we call this as a problem in this overall market when you look at a monopoly. Well, the flip side of that is what we call a monopsony in economics. I'm not making that up, all right? It's not a made-up word, a monopsony, okay? A monopsony is where there is one consumer in this particular market, or a monopsony power where you have very few consumers in the market. And as we just saw from the previous slide, 93% of the market for teaching services is consumed by who? The public school districts. So it works very much in this case of a monopsony. And so what this does, if you'll follow me, WC is our competitive wage, all right? Where you have the marginal value is equal to AE, or that's going to be aggregate expenditures here. That would be our competitive market outcome. But instead of having a competitive market outcome, we have only a few consumers of teaching services. So let's look at marginal expenditures, where it equals marginal value. We go down and find our quantity that's going to be consumed of teachers, or hired, I guess we would say, and then the wage in which they're going to make here in this market. And we notice as WM, W star M, is less than the competitive market. So what public schools are doing is, by having so much control of the market, they're also depressing wages and employment in this market too. And so if we were able to have school choice and allow for competition, we would see that wages would tend to rise and more teachers could potentially be employed as well, which is another one of the benefits of having school choice. So the testimony going on with the ongoing school finance trial addressed this very issue, where we have Dr. Jacob Vigor, who is a Harvard-trained economist, who said introducing greater competition into the market for teachers will raise teacher salaries, okay? Which goes back to maybe improving educational outcomes and increasing teacher satisfaction as well. And so overall, teachers win with school choice. Dr. Wahlberg actually has a paper on this very issue, where if you look at in Houston, allowing for universal school choice would increase teacher salaries by as much as $12,000, right? Pretty substantial increase. Now, this could be different across the state. As you have rural areas, you may not see that much of an increase, but still you would see an increase because you are allowing for market forces to begin to work. And instead of only having one consumer of teaching services, you have multiple that's out there in the market. Instead of just having myself being a public school, now you have a private school here, another public school, you see what I mean? There's many other consumers in this overall market, and so now you have a little bit more of the negotiating power to determine what your wage would be. And teachers would also have more satisfaction in the sense that they could choose where they would like to teach. Maybe at a private school, public school, give them more of an opportunity to decide where they would like to work. And so finally here, teachers win from an efficient teaching market through school choice, not by public school control. And this is all not only from the consumer side, which I've talked about a lot today, but it's also from the producer side, right? Where you only have schools, public schools, where many of our kids and youth are going to, that have no other opportunity or ability to go to a private school or to a home school. I was fortunate enough from kindergarten through second grade to go to private school, from third grade to sixth grade to go to public school, and then from seventh grade through 12th grade I went to homeschool. So I got a little bit of all these different worlds, and I'm fortunate enough to go on to get my PhD in economics. And I don't think without that education levels that I was able to choose from, that was the big thing, choice, and have the liberty to do that, I may not have been in the same situation, being able to talk to a great group of people that we have here today. And I really think school of choice is something that we need to be looking forward to in the future, and something we need to do as soon as possible, because the best way to reduce poverty is to have a job. The best way to get a job is to be better educated. And so in order to do this, we really need to bring about school of choice in the great state of Texas and lead the nation in this moving forward. So thank you.